Happy Monday, y'all. Happy everybody is here today. So today we have some important topics to surface. But first, we're going to, of course, start off with a prayer and scripture from our very own Mother Johnson. Clap it up for her, y'all.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll be reading the scripture. See how very much our Father loves us, for he calls us his children. And that is what we are. But the people who belong to this world don't recognize that we are God's children because they don't know him. Dear friends, we are already God's children, but he has not yet shown us what we will be like when Christ appears. But we don't know that we will be like him, for we will see him as he really is. And all who have this eager expectation will keep themselves pure, just as he is pure. That's 1 John 3:1-3 from 1 John. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Dear Father, we thank you for allowing us to assemble here again once more. Thank you for this day, dear God. Thank you, Lord, for the people that is here. Thank you. We thank you for everything you've done for us and that you are doing for us. We thank you for the food that has been prepared for us. We thank you again, dear God, for allowing us just to be here one more time. We thank you. And as we go back to our seats, be with us, Lord. And those that's coming, oh God, be with them. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Thank you, Mother Johnson. So now we have our Black History Fact of the day from our very own founder and director, Miss Ashley Sharpton. Black History Fact.
Sorry, y'all. Happy Huddle Monday. I usually don't do the Black History Fact. I was like, wait, what? Okay, sorry. Okay, so does anybody know what Black August is? Okay, good. That's what today's Black History Fact is about, so listen up. Okay. So Black August is an annual, month-long commemoration of the freedom fighters and movement workers who mapped out the blueprint of Black resistance and those who are continuing the fight today. This tradition was created after activist and author George Jackson was killed by a San Quentin prison guard in California on August 21st, 1971. Jackson, along with fellow inmates Fleta Drumgo and John Cluchette, were accused of killing a white prison guard in January 1970. In March 1972, Drumgo and Cluchette were acquitted of the charges because the state failed to prove its case. Jackson's imprisonment occurred during a time when Black people were becoming more vulnerable to the criminal justice system due to political campaigns to be tough on crime and take on the war on drugs. He was just 19 years old when he was sentenced to 1 year to life after being convicted of stealing $70 from a gas station. The majority of his years in prison was spent in solitary confinement. Despite the isolation, racism, and oppression of the prison system, Jackson's voracious love of reading revolutionary works and connections to other Black power activists who were also incarcerated in the same prison transformed him into a prison's rights leader and a revolutionary. His writings from prison continue to inspire and empower Black activists and abolitionists today. Civil rights activist and writer Julius Lester wrote about how Jackson preserved and strengthened his well-being despite existing within an oppressive environment in a 1970 New York Times column. He began to discipline his mind and his body toward one end, revolution. Lester wrote of Jackson, his commitment could be seen in his face, in the way he walked, in the way he talked, and though he was never the instigator of trouble, he never failed to defend himself when trouble came. It did, It had to, for prisons do not rehabilitate. They destroy and call it rehabilitation. George Jackson refused to be destroyed. The first Black August was held in 1979. Those who participated strengthened their minds and discipline through fasting, reading revolutionary works, which included Jackson's writings, and abstaining from radio, controlled substances, and television. Here are a few ways you can honor Black August today. 1, learn about and honor other Black uprisings and revolutionaries. Number 2, amplify messages from abolitionists and incarcerated individuals. Number 3, read Black literature. Number 4, connect with Black organizers in your area. And number 5, participate in Black August, which is this month. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. So now we have our Youth and College report from our Youth and College Director, Mr. Felivi Dosa. Clap it up for him, y'all.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, everybody, for coming again for Monday Huddle. Of course, August 26th is just around the corner. The only two major important facts I have to give you guys is, of course, the Youth and College Division is still working on their policy agenda. Of course, as much as we are working hard to organize people and make sure people are coming out, we must show that there is an ask that we want. Especially for young people out in this country, we want to make sure that when we go there, there is a specific ask, not only of just peace and justice, but these specific acts and bills that we want to push. So I'm asking any organizers, anybody out there that are interested in working on the policy agenda, please email me, youth@nationalactionnetwork.net. I'll repeat it again, youth@nationalactionnetwork.net. I want to make sure that this policy agenda that we create is, very well detailed and is able to really ask what we need as young people in this country. The second fact is just if any organization is interested in having an Instagram Live, just so that we can rally more people to come out, we're open to that too. So also email me at youth@nationalactionnetwork.net, and we can always make that happen. So other than that, thank you again.
Thank you, Fo. So now we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty. Is everybody an updated member for the year of 2023? I'm not seeing many hands. If not, this applies to you as well as those who are not members. The best way to stay informed and end the action is to become a member of NAN and stay informed about NAN events close to where you live. Text Justice followed by your state to 59769. Again, text Justice followed by your state to 59769. And also a reminder to join us at the Saturday Action Rally every Saturday at 9 a.m. No later. So now I would like to open the floor up to any good news. Any good news? Any good news? Any good news?
Hello, everyone. My name is Lamine Kone, and I'm a junior, and I'm going into my junior year at University at Buffalo. My good news for today is I'm getting ready tomorrow to play a golf tournament, and yeah, I'm going to play against my friend Felivi over here and win for the second year in a row. And last year he lost against me, so just running it back this year again. So thank you very much. So next year this year I'm just protecting my throne and making sure, I'm staying up there. Thank you very much.
So first of all, it was a team, and we both won first place as a team. Before he comes here and say that, we don't know if we're gonna be on the same team. And at the end of the day, I know my skills, and I will it's okay, it's all right. I just want to correct that.
Just to clarify, he was on the team. He didn't really do anything. He got carried. So, but I give him credit. We'll sell it tomorrow. So we'll see. Thank you.
Hi, good day, everybody, and God bless everybody. I'm so glad we're here together. My good news is based on this allegation that this Florida governor has made, alleging that from slavery we learned and benefited from learning some skills. All right, so we know definitely that's not true, and my evidence of that is Bible scriptures, which clearly shows that any person that God created, God gives skills, and also God gives them skills to learn new skills. So I just wanted to straighten that out. But in the meantime, I consulted with the Education Committee and made the suggestion that they consider a film series open to the public about the great African civilizations. I'm really hoping that they really do consider it like reasonably and do consider displaying that educational knowledge for us at NAN. So that's my good news. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My good news is Saturday, I attended the D Lee 23 Foundation. What an event. It was a great event. The food was good, the people was good, the children were good. Everything was good about the event. And I hope that they continue to do it every year. They had a good space. It was, one little girl was just dancing. She took over the dance floor. But it was, oh my God, they gave away prizes. They gave things to the youth. I mean, they really did it up. And I want to congratulate them on their first annual. And I will continue to go every year. And thank you, Patrice. We have fun. Thanks.
Good evening, Huddle, Nan family. I come to share some really good news, I think. You remember last year I told you that the Cure documentary got nominated for an Emmy Award. We didn't win, but we got nominated. I come with the good news now that the Cure documentary is now going to be made into a television series. Now, one other little thing here I got. These are the things they're putting out for the Cure documentary. So if people want these, I can get them and I can autograph them for you if anybody wants them, okay? The Cure documentary was about what happened with the fact that we were involved in Stonewall in 1969. And while we were fighting on the inside, Dr. Barbara Gettings and Psychiatric Association was fighting on the inside to get homosexuality declared not an illness, not a disease, and not something that people need to die for. That's my words, die for. And so we fought 7 years, and we won. 7 years, we fought the American Psychiatric Association, and we won. Out of that came the Cure documentary for PBS Independent Lens. So we got nominated for an Emmy Award last year. I mean, can you imagine how it feels at 83 years of age to be in a movie that's nominated for an Emmy? I'm 84 now. And on being 84, the next news is that the Cure documentary is going to be made into a television series. So I get a chance to pick out who's going to play me with a cameo appearance. So y'all stay tuned. And then finally, the last little plug I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you all, I have a book on Amazon.com. And it's called As Goddess Has Landed, Does She Have a Message for You? And I'm the author, Reverend Crone Goddess McGora Kennedy. The reason I'm asking for you all to please get the book, we really ran into a very bad situation this week. And, I'm like kind of hurting, so I'm kind of asking people to kind of get the book and help me out. Thank you. I don't have any on me. You have to go to Amazon, and they'll tell you how much it is, the price and shipping. Oh, yeah, right.
news. Greetings, family. My name is Daniel Williams, former LGBT chair of the LGBT committee here at NAN, House of Justice. My good news is I've been training and taking classes for the New York State Chaplaincy Task Force for the last 10 weeks, and I passed my exam, my final exam. And soon I will be Chaplain Daniel Williams. And it's been fitting that Mother Goddess Kennedy goes before me because for a long time I was saying to myself, it's hard for me to see me stepping into my truth or stepping into my calling, being a black gay man. And Reverend Goddess Kennedy, she's 84 years old, being a reverend goddess all her life at this age and being a black lesbian woman. And it's important for me to pick up the mantle and follow in those footsteps. So I really appreciate for her guidance and just her being an elder in the community to give me influence to make sure I do what God calls me to do as a chaplain. And I've been busy way before that doing chaplaincy work. So it's not I don't know what I'm doing, so I should just go ahead and do it. So I passed my exam. The graduation is coming up in 30 days after we pass the exam, and I'm excited. So thank you. And one more thing, coming up soon, August 26th, I'm having my 4th annual cookout for the LGBT homeless. It will be celebrating Marsha P. Johnson's birthday. Marsha P. Johnson's birthday is on August 24th. And so we're going to have a cookout on the 26th to celebrate her and to go feed homeless people from, I think, the shelter called Marsha's House. And it's important because Marsha P. Johnson was homeless herself, and she was an activist, and she also changed a lot of things in the community. So I just want to make sure I pour into LGBT homeless young adults to make sure that they understand this is where they are currently. That doesn't mean that they can't make some impact in the world. So that's my goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody that shared. So now we're going to get into the Did You Know segments because you may not have known. First, I'm going to call up Miss Patrice Perry because we have an important Did You Know to speak about with her special guest, Daniel Williams. You both can come up to the stand and speak.
Thank you. Good evening, Huddle family. How many of you have heard of the name O'Shea Sibley? Oh, all right. That's good. All right, y'all. I love that. Huddle's feeling good about that. It's a sad situation, but I want to make sure you remember the name because that's what we're going to talk about today. Pain, pride, and performance at O'Shea Sibley's vigil. A community in mourning asserted its right to exist and to vogue in New York City as a teenager turned himself in for fatally stabbing Sibley in what Mayor Eric Adams said clearly was a hate crime. New York City's ballroom community turned out in full force over the weekend to mourn the killing of O'Shea Sibley, a 28-year-old dancer, in what authorities deemed a homophobic and a racist attack a week earlier. Friends, sympathizers, and members of Sibley's family gathered at the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community center in Chelsea on Saturday and marched to Christopher Street over the pier overlooking the Hudson for a memorial service that culminated in a sweaty dance pit. Otis Pena, another close friend who was with Sibley at the time of the killing and described holding him as he bled out in an emotional Facebook Live video, told the crowd that he understood why Sibley had been targeted. He was defending his friends as he always does. O'Shea stood up for what he believed in. O'Shea stood up because he was a protector. Sibley was a gifted dancer and member of the House of D'Amour in the city's ballroom community, a queer subculture that began in Black and Latino circles in the 1970s. Houses acted as an adopted family for queer and transgender youth, often estranged from their blood relatives, and would compete in extravagant displays of costumes and voguing at balls. Sibley's killing on July 30th in a gas station parking lot on Coney Island Avenue in Midwood, where he and his friends were dancing to a Beyoncé song while fueling up on their way home from a trip to the Jersey Shore, sent shockwaves throughout New York, LGBTQ community, and beyond. His death has inspired TikTok videos of people voguing in gas station parking lots and a message of support from Beyoncé herself. The 17-year-old suspect, who attended a high school near the scene of the attack, surrendered himself to authorities on Friday. Mayor Eric Adams said at a press conference. Helen Peterson, a spokesperson for the Brooklyn DA's office, said that the teen, whose name was not going to be released because of his age, was arraigned Friday night and held in custody. He's due back in court, the Brooklyn Supreme Court, on Monday. Saturday's vigil followed one Friday evening at the gas station in Midwood, where Sibley was stabbed, as a few hundred demonstrators gathered to mourn and then dance as they made their presence felt. The corner of the 70th precinct is where it intersects with the 66th and 61st precincts, and officers from all of those watch mostly from a distance. While Adams, speaking in the same spot on Saturday morning, warned against framing the incident of any tension between the Muslim and LGBTQ communities. Black transgender activist Queen Jean on Friday night told us that we have to protect ourselves, while saying that police terrorized them as they always wanted to do something in that area, and mentioned their religion. So, as we talked about O'Shea Sibley, we were present at the vigil for him on Friday, which was in Brooklyn on Coney Island Avenue at the gas station, where they came and laid, they considered an offering. So when they say an offering, they laid flowers or candles or something towards his memory, and then he lit it, and everybody walked away. But I wanted to talk about this because, of course, we lost a young man, O'Shea Sibley, but you also lost a 17-year-old who actually stabbed this young man because of a hate crime. So now his life is also over. So 2 black men we've already lost from our society. And to talk a little bit more about it, it's Daniel who actually sent it over to our crisis department here at NAN. And as he expressed, he was the head of the LGBTQ committee here at NAN. So I want him to come up. He's been in close contact with the family and let us know what's happening with them, how we can support them, how we can continue to keep the name of O'Shea Sibley alive. So at this time, as part of the Did You Know, I'm going to ask for Daniel Williams to come up and speak a little bit about the situation. Please welcome Brother Daniel Williams.
Thank you. This is definitely a hard situation to talk about. And because of my recent years, stepping into prevention world in terms of HIV and AIDS and STDs, and make sure young adults are prepared and get tested and know their status, I haven't been doing too much activism lately. And so when people see me step up and when I talk about the subjects like these, they may be unfamiliar, why is he talking about this? Why is this important? It's important to me because I am a part of the ballroom scene. I'm in the House of Ebony. I haven't been to Ebony for many years. I have many gay siblings, family, etc., who vogue at balls on a regular. And then also the connection between my job and this community is I work pretty closely with the Kiki scene, which is the young adult scene of the overall subculture ballroom. And Otis and O'Shea came to my job many times when we started our Kiki Lounge, where we have a drop-in center and we let the young men, the young people come in and vogue and practice their skills and make sure that they polish their skills, because once you start working balls, you got to be prepared. You don't want to get chopped, and that's important for them. And so they want to get their bragging rights and stuff like that. And so Otis and O'Shea would be practicing their skills on a regular basis. I think we were doing every Thursday, and like to see these participants come in and practice their choreographing and their dance moves and their steps, implementing ballet. And I'm like, these kids are very talented. And I was just like blown away and appreciative, and for me 100%, because they came in and represented the program. They were a part of the program. Sometimes it would be just 5 of them, and I really didn't have a whole lot of participants, but we grew. But they would come in and support. And I really appreciate them. So it's hard, when you lose one of your babies from a program that you work with. I know y'all work with the Huddle here, and if something happened to somebody here, I know Huddle family would be heartbroken. So this is why I'm speaking up. I don't vogue, but I dibble dabble and a little runway in the scene. And if anything happened to anybody in the scene, me being a big tall guy like I am myself, I can see myself being an O'Shea, stepping up to protect my friends who may be shorter, who may be smaller, and trying to make sure they were okay. It was hard today. I had to call my mom and tell her about, me leaving town real quick to go support the family and support his chosen family. And she's worried now, even more so than she already was about my safety. And I feel like, what's interesting about Black, there's layers of marginalization in our community, was safety is a luxury for a lot of us. Black women, Black trans women, Black gay men, Black and Latino, brown people, safety is a luxury. And a lot of times we have to go through situations where we're out and about being just existing and something happens. I kind of wanted to make a few corrections. Forgive me, Patrice. So the young man that was 17 that killed O'Shea happened to be Arabic. He wasn't Black, but what's also crazy and interesting, I've been trying to post about this, trying to have conversations about this, is that he was a Muslim. And he said that O'Shea and his friends dancing and voguing was against his Muslim faith. And that was the position he was standing when he had an offense towards O'Shea and his friends. And then I meet O'Shea's family at the vigil, and they're all Muslim. And O'Shea was Muslim as well. And so here we are, a Muslim person, Arabic, killing a Black man who was Muslim as well. So there needs to be some conversations around faith and how homosexuality or just any kind of sexuality, period, other than heterosexuality, is not an offense to God, not an offense to Black people or other people's faith. And if that's the case, that's not how we do things. The Bible and I don't know what the Quran says, but the Bible says, don't harm your brother. Don't harm your neighbor. So knowing that these things are happening in our community, it really frustrates me, because I've been a part of the faith LGBT community for a while, and I really wish that we talk about things and bring communities together and bridge the gap between other faiths and other people in a community that have certain beliefs so that we can all coexist. I invited his twin sisters to come here, but today was a viewing for the body, and they couldn't come. They live in Philly also, and I'm going to try my best tonight to make it to Philly to attend his funeral tomorrow. I don't want to play around with my chaplaincy, and so I feel really charged to make sure I be around these kids, because I'm very clear that oftentimes I think about Khalif Browder and his family. he committed suicide, correct? Right? And shortly after, months later, some time later, his mom died. And so young people, the heartbreak is serious. The young people that are coming to my program, they are dealing with some deep emotions. And I don't want them to spiral. Things may happen, of course, like they may pick up, they may start using again any kind of drugs that they decide to use, if they use any drugs. Of course, they may self-medicate with like marijuana, drinking, or whatever. These things happen, but I don't want them to spiral deep into it. And that's oftentimes happening. Self-harm, either by way of drugs, cutting yourself, suicide, or just not taking care of yourself. And then, you see what happens to Khalid Browder's mom, and I knew his family as well, his brother, that spirals down. So I want to make sure I stay close to these young people because I don't want to see a homicide and then a suicide happens right afterwards. And that's very often that happens. And I I care deeply about these kids. Somebody cared for me at one point and made sure I didn't spiral. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrice and Daniel. So we have our second Did You Know? And it's actually one that, we've been looking forward to. Talks about the important thing that we've been looking forward to. So my article is called 60 Years Later, We March on Washington Again. 60 years ago, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led a historic march in Washington, D.C. at a time when the nation was at an inflection point. Hundreds of thousands gathered at the Lincoln Memorial on August 28, 1963, as Dr. King called for better wages, jobs, voting rights, and true representation, fair housing, and equality across the board. 6 decades later, so many of those hard-fought gains are under renewed threat, along with an increase in hate crimes and democracy itself hanging in the balance. We as a country are at crossroads. Do we continue on the path of progress, or do we revert back to the dark days? The vast majority are united, and we will raise our voices in union for a clarion call for fairness and justice at the March on Washington once again. My organization, the National Action Network, and I have been diligently working with Martin Luther King III, Andrea Waters King, and the Drum Major Institute as we place the final touches on this momentous demonstration. We will lead a coalition of 60 national groups that span across racial, cultural, religious, and generational lines at this pivotal event on August 26th in DC. The 60 partner organizations for the 60th anniversary march include the Anti-Defamation League, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, the NAACP, the Center for Reproductive Rights, UNIDOS, the National Urban League, GLAAD, and so many more. At a moment when all of our civil rights are under attack, a united front is the key to pushing back against both a climate of hate and mechanisms that would like to undermine all that we have achieved. In March, the FBI released an updated report on hate crimes in 2021. According to those stats, hate crimes rose 12% from the previous year, with 65% of victims being targeted because of their race or ethnicity. We continuously learn about attacks on Black and brown folks, members of the Asian community, the Jewish community, and the Muslim community, the LGBTQ community, and others. At the same time, laws are being implemented that stripped away reproductive rights and civil rights. Last year, the Supreme Court dismantled abortion rights and opened the floodgates for legislation around the country that severely limits a woman's right to choose and her ability to maintain bodily autonomy. Just this summer, the highest court in the land effectively ended affirmative action in higher education, which will have a detrimental impact on Black students' enrollment in many institutions. Several Republican attorneys general have even attempted to extend such measures into corporate America by putting pressure on Fortune 100 companies to not adhere to DEI programs or any race-based personnel decisions. The Supreme Court has also limited LGBTQ plus protections earlier this summer by ruling in favor of a web designer who wanted the ability to refuse to create websites celebrating same-sex weddings. The court also destroyed President Biden's student loan debt forgiveness program, which will directly impact Black and brown students and adults the most as they carry a disproportionate amount of debt compared to their white counterparts. And of course, back in 2013, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act itself, essentially eliminating the requirement that localities with a history of discrimination get approval from the federal government before enacting changes. As a result, dozens of states established strict new voter ID laws, eliminated early voting days, closing polling locations, and more. New restrictions are being conjured up even today, making it more and more difficult for people to cast their vote. While we raise awareness around these issues and organize, we are simultaneously fighting back against continued police brutality. Despite a few signs of progress, like the prosecution and conviction of former Officer Derek Chauvin for George Floyd's death, and the DOJ investigating police departments like the one in Memphis following the death of Tyree Nichols, there are still far too many incidents of police abuse, shootings, excessive force, and a criminal justice system in need of dire reform. This is why we still demand passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. When Dr. King convened that massive crowd 60 years ago on the National Mall, he demanded civil and economic rights for the Black community and laid out his dream for America. While we celebrate the advancements achieved since that historic moment, we recognize the clear and present dangers laid out before us. That is precisely why the 60th anniversary March on Washington won't be a commemoration, but rather a continuation of Dr. King's work and vision. When I founded the National Action Network in 1991 with the support and blessings of the King family, I vowed to carry on his fight for freedom, fairness, and justice. On August 26th, that continued push for equality and Dr. King's dream will lead us once again to the nation's capital. As our multiracial, intergenerational demonstration meets at the Lincoln Memorial and marches to Dr. King's memorial, I am reminded of his timeless words: "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." We are caught in an inescapable network of mutility, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Reverend Al Sharpton serves as the founder and president of the National Action Network, NAN, anchors Politics Nation on MSNBC, hosts the nationally syndicated radio show Keeping It Real and The Hour of Power, holds weekly action rallies, and speaks out on behalf of those who have been silenced and marginalized. Rooted in the spirit and tradition of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., NAN boasts more than 100 chapters across the country to promote a modern civil rights agenda that includes the fight for one standard of justice, decency, and equal opportunity for all. So that concludes my Did You Know article. And what I want to say to that, because there's no underlying question, the reason why we keep on bringing this up, of course, because this is so important, especially for the youth. You know, we want to bring out more youth and more people because we are still fighting to achieve Dr. Martin's dream. We're still fighting. You know, we're still continuing. We're still going through stuff in the Black community, and we still need to fight harder. And we are not unified as much as we can be. That's why we're doing the March on Washington, so we can all be unified and we can just throw away the thought of divide and conquer, and we could just bring on a new thought of unification and achieving all that we need to achieve. So we do want everybody to come August 26th to the March on Washington. That goes for youth, elderly people, if you can, everybody, anybody who's willing to come, we want to bring you out. And that's all I have to say. So, for our next Did You Know, we have Miss Damo, our co-founder.
Remix. So we have a special guest today before Dom comes. He was supposed to go after our first presentation with Patrice and Daniel. I'm going to bring Dan up to welcome him. But it's a conflict, no claps yet. It's a conflict resolution presentation, but it goes hand in hand in what we were just talking about with Daniel and what happened in the gas station. Conflict resolution is very, very important. It can go from small things to great things. And if you learn how to resolve conflict, maybe we will see less lives taken, or maybe we see less things escalate because we know how to resolve conflict. So we're going to have a presentation about conflict resolution, but it was very important for us to put it right after the first Did You Know, because, well, that was supposed to be the last Did You Know, but Daniel was here. But because what happened, basically, I don't know if everyone, I know some people were late, but basically what happened in Brooklyn with the young man, he was basically dancing outside, we all heard about it, and there was an argument that ensued, and then there was an action that took after that, and they took his life. They stabbed him and took his life. But if it didn't lead, if they knew how to resolve the conflict, whatever issue the young man felt that he had because he was Muslim or he felt he was being offended, there was a way to resolve that instead of going to violence or going to anger or arguing about it. I don't even think that was his business, but that's not my business. We're going to have a presentation, and I also think that the conflict resolution applies for all the Did You Knows tonight. It's up to you guys. That's just my opinion.
And Ashley is absolutely right. With conflict resolution, we need to understand how to de-escalate, whether we are the aggressors or not the aggressors in a circumstance. So conflict resolution is certainly an important concept to understand unilaterally throughout many different fields, social work included, educators as well, even with the task force police precincts nationwide and globally. Conflict resolution is something particular fields training, and training needs to continue to represent the era that we are in those whose lives we are meant to protect and serve, for those who are under oath to do so. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce an organization president by the name of David Hopper, as well as the organization's vice president, Jillian Hopper, to address the microphone. They got some conflict resolution content we're going to share with National Action Network Youth Huddle this evening. And we want to continue to keep those who have been victimized by conflicts that could have been de-escalated in our prayers.
Good evening. So, first of all, thank you for having us here today. We definitely appreciate being here, and thank you for allowing us to be here in your presence today. So, with that, my name is Jillian Hopper, and
David Hopper.
So, we are Nana's Living Room. So, Nana's Living Room is a community-based organization which really kind of helps at-risk youth as well as formerly incarcerated and just pretty much youth who have been in an environment where they need healing. We use photography and videography as a way to combat against violence and promote healing within our Black and brown communities. So I come from a background of being a master's of social work, an educator, also a praise dancer, and there's many other things. But just to give you a brief introduction of myself, like I said, just come from a background of social work, educator, working with youth.
How y'all doing? My name is David Hopper. As I said earlier, I am the vice president of Nana's Living Room. Just to give you my background, I'm formerly incarcerated. Once I came home from being incarcerated, but understanding inside that I had no right to put hands on anybody else, right? It's not for me to be the judge and jury of someone just because we have a disagreement. And with that mental, with that mindset, when I came home, it was only right for me to pretty much start mentoring and give back to the youth. And cliche is try to reach one person, you change the world, and all the cliche stuff. And at first, to me, I didn't believe it. But once I started doing the work, I understood that that one person can actually create the domino effect that will actually change the world. So with that, I wrote a book. It's called Moments, Writings, Thoughts, and Letters of a Two-Time Felon. This book is pretty much used as a talking piece and a conversation piece to talk about conflicts and conflict resolution. And we also, as my wife said, we also just started we just got our home base, which is the Polo Grounds Community Center, where we will be doing, thank you, where we will be doing our first class, our first official class. Is called MAP, M-A-P, which is movies, art, and photography. Map your life out. So we'll be teaching the kids from age 12 to 17, 11. We'll take 11. But it's 12 to 17. It'll be every Wednesday for 6 weeks. We teach them the basics of cameras. By the time they finish the course, the class, they will be pretty much at a space where they know how to do the next thing, which is make a music video like the kids like to do today, make a short film, do a professional photo shoot. My wife didn't say that she's also a professional photographer. I don't know why she doesn't say that. She's a great photographer. She takes all my pictures. But with that, we will be showing a 2-minute short film, a thought-provoking film that shows what happens when untreated trauma, anger, and arrogance combine without that conflict resolution. So with that.
And let me just also add, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. So let me just also add, Nana's Living Room really is a place like, as you can think of when we were younger, you think of a place that you felt most comfortable and safe at. And that was pretty much always on your grandmother's couch or someone like an elderly person that you can actually feel comfortable in talking to. So when we created Nana's Living Room, which we've been about almost 2 years now, so almost 2 years now, when we created Nana's Living Room, our thinking was back to when we were younger, how we felt and who we felt most comfortable to talk to. So our goal at Nana's Living Room is to really give youth a place where they feel safe and comfortable to talk to someone, whether that be us, whether that be an elderly person, just to be able to provide that to the youth in our communities. Because obviously, seeing from things that are going on, they need a place to actually come to and feel safe at home. So just wanted to add that.
What will a man be without a woman, right? So, thank you. With that, we're going to step to the side and let the film play.
These are my last moments on the streets as a free man. (2006) Summer Jam Sunday.
Yo! Yo, what the fuck? You don't see me crossing the fucking street? What the fuck is wrong with you, bro? Is that shit, you fucking dumbass? Go get a fucking license. Get the fuck out the block.
Driven by ego, his anger fueled my rage. If I felt disrespected in any way, retribution was sure to follow. My inability to deal with conflict without aggression forced me to create my own conflict resolution.
What's up now? Yo, you want us?
So we just wanted to, just to the quote, just to the very end, to the quote. So that is a true story. It's actually my story. It's what happened that sent me to prison. Everything in that scene is the truth. Minus, you didn't see who was actually in the car. It was my children. So with that, right, imagine the mindset, just not of me, of a person, right? Got his kids in the car and still would go to that extreme, right? So then we talking about the quote at the end, which is an eye for an eye leaves the world blind, right? That's my man Gandhi. I love Gandhi. So think about that and just hold that about 30 seconds, right? An eye for an eye leaves the world blind. So with that, can I get somebody, anybody, we love interaction, right? We're gonna loosen up a little bit. We love interaction. We're gonna pick on the young people. That's a fact. We're gonna definitely pick on the young people. But what does that quote mean to someone, please? The golfer.
When I think about the quote, an eye for an eye, I feel like it just means that there isn't really anybody that comes out winning from the situation. Because fighting violence for violence, at the end of the day, even somebody will be hurt, and even the person that comes out victorious, they're still hurt too. So when I think about the quote, an eye for an eye leaves the world blind, it means like neither one of the parties can win from the situation. It just leaves the situation like both parties damaged.
Anybody else want to share what that quote means?
Yeah, I want to share the words that the brother used because that's what I thought of initially. But when he said it, I thought about something else. You know, we need the eyes, if we have them, that work. It also indicates eyes are used for reasoning. Eyes are used for thinking. And if a person takes a person's eyes out, they're not given a chance to think things out or to reason. So we have to give each other time to see themselves and see each other. So when one is given a full chance to do that in a more loving way, through this organization also, through National Action Network also, peace is what happens. But it does take grace and mercy being offered first, so people could take the time to look at themselves and look at the person who they may have a conflict with as also being a human being too. So the eyes is not just a superficial surface. They're blind people who see very well, very well. So God bless you all.
Immediately when I heard that, I'm thinking about the dollar bill and how there's an eye, and that symbolism is on U.S. currency. We see that symbolism also in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and things like that. So when we think about why Gandhi said an eye for an eye, and thinking about where he might have found his inspiration from, some of us might allude to biblical textual readings and things like that. Yet the fact that the quote we're talking about go on to say, an eye for an eye leaves the world blind. And although I don't know if the punctuation is a comma, exclamation point, period, to me, I feel as though there's a lack of intuition based on observation without an eye. 50% of the normal human eyesight is reduced by the lack of an eye. So allow us to be inspired by Gandhi's word, but not also be inspired by his word. Interpret it in a way that will benefit society. I think it's very important for us to understand that sometimes a tooth for a tooth is often mentioned after an eye for an eye, but not always. And a tooth for a tooth is a similar term that can accompany and complement the phrase an eye for an eye. Yet there's an eye missing, and there's also a tooth missing when there's a tooth for a tooth. In retrograde, I want to say it's important for us to really think about why these phrases have transcended time the way that they have. Because Gandhi is no longer amongst us. If I'm not mistaken, Gandhi is no longer amongst the living, so God rest his soul.
Yeah.
For the sake of time, you're only going to take one more.
If we all took, an eye for an eye consistently and everyone would end up blind naturally, it wouldn't really make sense even then to take an eye, because if you take the eye and do the exact same thing your oppressor did or anything else, it wouldn't really make you better than them. Sure, you end it, but if you're going to end up blind, you might as well do it and make it your last thing. You can't go blind and be like, oh, I still have things to do. You can't see what else. You already finished it. They blinded you, you blinded them, you're neutral. So it's best to finish it on both sides equally than act like one side still owes the other an eye.
Thank you. So,
The finisher. Yeah, so I've heard that saying before, of course. I've also heard the saying, like, if someone steals from you, you want to cut their hand off. Those are things that happen in the Bible. Like, these are like repercussions of, like, certain types of things that people did that were like injustices, so to speak. But, like, I think the eye for an eye, that quote, introduces us to, like, think, and to help us have another mind to know that there's options or other things to do. I didn't grow up with an eye for eye, lead the blind blind. I grew up like my mom just told me today. Defend yourself if you need to out there while I'm out and about in the street. Not that I was going to a funeral, but this is my mom grew up in Harlem in the hood, and so this is what mothers want for their sons. Take care of yourself, defend yourself, be safe. If someone approaches you or you need to defend yourself, stand up. And I hear what you were saying. I understood about your story. You stood up for your kids in that moment. There were like 6 people at you with pipes and like bottles in their hands or whatever. Like, that makes sense. But I think, like I said, Gandhi is one of those people, philosophers, who will try to open your mind. And so every situation is not going to be a situation where you need to like take revenge or take somebody else's life. Some situations are need to you need to step back and think about them and be aware and open your mind to listen, there are other options. There are other ways to handle things, right? So.
thank you for sharing that, because that definitely leads me into the purpose of showing that film. And the purpose of showing that film really is to discuss, develop, and promote healthy ways to resolve conflict, right? Because a lot of the times when we're in situations, I'm sure everybody has experienced some type of challenging situation, whether you've been on the train and we see what the trains look like today, whether you're driving and we see sometimes the people are having road rage. So in any type of situation, it's a better way to handle the situation. So we want to talk about that. Like, what are some things, like, if you can maybe identify or think about 3 significant factors that happened in this film that the gentleman could have done differently, or something that even caused his adrenaline to rise to where he felt like he needed to get revenge on someone. She said walk away.
Walk away.
Okay. Refer to the gun, he said refer to the gun licensure rules, right? Okay, for the state, per state. What do you think that was a significant factor? What do you think happened that caused him to get frustrated? What was one thing that you saw from this film that happened that caused him to get frustrated? She kept cursing. Yep, she kept cursing. It kept escalating. Pounding on the car. Yep, yep. Yes. Well, we're gonna get to the questions in a second, because he redid it. He's out of jail now. so thank God for that, right? But we want to know, like, basically looking at the film, like some things that contributed towards, like, if it were you as a character in the movie, what is something that really kind of stood out? Like, dang, if that was me, that was significant. What happened? Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. Why was she cursing? Okay. I'm going to get to the question part. I'm going to get to the question part, right? Do you want to? Do you raising your hand? Yes. Absolutely. Right.
So, a couple of things we're gonna run through real quick because of the time. So, just to point out, everything that everybody said was great, right on point. So, one, the young lady had a bottle of liquor, so she was intoxicated, right? Two, right, because we gotta keep it 100, right? We're gonna keep it balanced. The driver, which was me, I don't know if y'all recognize it, y'all noticed it. I sped through the stop sign, right? So, right, that's what happened. That was the start of it, right? I almost hit her. Right. See, so these are the things, and as the young brother said, we being in such a rage, we don't really see what really happened, right? Facts over feelings, right? And that's what we're here for, right? It's perspective. Somebody said it earlier about looking at things from a different lens, and I'm not gonna take her quote. She has something about lenses and looking at things different, but it's about the perspective, right? So one, I was wrong, right? I was dead wrong. One, I'm speeding, and then he got out the car. So he went to get the gun and come back. Yeah, I see. She's like, wow, yes. So now think of the story, right? Everything that happened, I left and then came back with it. Right? So what the brother said too, no, I took the kids. It was actually on my block. That was actually on where I was parking. So I breezed through the stop sign to get the parking spot. Started with the young lady. She did what she did. That's what happened. So when I went, the rage of her going to get the guys, it blinded me. So I didn't see anything else. But, oh, you trying to play me? Right? I'm feeling some kind of way. As young people, right, we elders, so we know, we done felt some things. But we're here, so when y'all get in that space, this is really what it's about, an eye opener, a perspective. Like, hopefully y'all never get to that space. But if y'all get this, like, hold on, is this facts, right? We tell some of our youth, somebody steps on your foot, did they disrespect you? Right, was it on purpose? Did they mean to do it? Right, did you give them a chance to say sorry? Or was it just like, yo, I want to smoke? Right? So it's about the perspective and having that time to think. What's the 3 R's, right? So it's it's retreat, rethink, and resolve. Right. So say it again. Retreat, rethink, and resolve. See, y'all got it already.
So basically, it's kind of like, I like to try to say, like, in every situation, we need to press pause before we press play. right? Because sometimes we're in a situation, our adrenaline is racing, so many things are going on. We don't think before we react. We actually act first and think later. And when you act first and you think later, you're going to resolve conflict in a negative fashion versus if you took a moment and you actually thought about it, you may react in a positive way. So a part of this is just to implement positive resolve and not negative resolve, because there's a huge difference. Even thinking about the young man's life, you know, O'Shea, thinking about if they had acted differently, if they took a moment to pause, like, this young man is not offending anyone by dancing, but if they took a minute to pause and say, before I react and start getting into a fight, maybe there's a better way to handle this, right? Or maybe like walking away. Sometimes walking away doesn't necessarily work because some person might come behind you and still try to do things. So it's really kind of like what he says, so you retreat. And then you rethink, like, can I walk away from this situation? Can I remove myself? What can I do? Maybe I need to call the authorities. Maybe I need to do something else. Maybe I need to ask for help from anybody who's in the neighborhood. Because sometimes just one person saying, hey, what's going on over there, will stop a situation before it gets worse. So just thinking of those things really kind of helps as it relates to conflict resolution.
Thank y'all so much for having us. Do you have any questions? I know we got a couple of minutes, right? So you have any questions about the film, about my wife and I, the organization? Yes, Ms. Ashley. We didn't, that was one of thinking about the triggers, right? Knowing yourself, right? So I don't know if that was like a slang or that's really like you get hot, you get, right. Right, so to answer that, we couldn't have wrote that better. We couldn't have wrote that better. It's a feeling. Facts over feeling. Rage. It's on video. We gotta go back to the video. We gotta go back to the video. Oh, in the video, yes, 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 yes. Yes, it was reciprocate. I'm talking about the video. Yes, definitely. Yes, yes, yes. So I'm gonna just let me answer a question real quick. It's about knowing yourself. So for me, doing that 7 years, it sat me down and I learned myself. I learned who I want to be, right? The things that trigger me. So understanding and being real with yourself and knowing them triggers. Like right now, if something happens, right, some chaos happens. It's like butterflies, like you feel in love with somebody, like, ooh, but it's that, but it's from a negative point. So when I feel like, I know, like, and start sweating, like, seriously, I literally start sweating. Like, now I'm cool, but like 10 minutes before I got up here, I was sweating because I'm nervous. So I know my triggers, right? But knowing your triggers is the first step, because now you say, okay, knowing my triggers, so now what's your plan, right? Because knowing something and applying it is two different things. You can know everything in the world, but you don't apply it, doesn't help. So knowing your triggers and then getting the game plan, making a plan on open coping mechanisms, and that will propel you into a positive space, I believe.
Just to add, just very quickly, like he said, like just getting hot about situations and being hot-tempered at times. Huh? Oh, okay. Just thinking about being hot-tempered in situations, like we said, like knowing your triggers and then also learning coping mechanisms that's going to help you, right? right? Because not every coping mechanism is gonna help everybody. I could be like, hey, go into breathing techniques, and you'll be like, girl, no, I can't be breathing, right? And I understand that, right? So you have to learn, like, what coping mechanisms can I implement that will help me when I get angry, and then begin to practice them. So when you see them, and know that it's no such thing as a perfect practice, but you're gonna have times where you practice it and it works, and then you're gonna have times where you're like, that coping mechanism doesn't work, so I'm gonna try a new one, and then till you figure out what works best for you.
Good evening, everyone. My question to you, because this is important. Were you in your 20s, I hope I'm not being too nosy, like early 20s? The reason why I'm asking that, because when we're young, we think differently. Teenagers think differently from a 21-year-old and a 25-year-old. And that's why I'm asking the question, because when I was a teenager and I was in my early 20s, I was hot-tempered. And it's so funny you said breathing mechanism. That was one of the choices that helped me be a better person, to kind of like learn breathing techniques and say, hey girl, calm down, and like kind of like mentally talk to myself so I can just breathe and retract what I'm about to say, because I'm very quick with my mouth, and my mouth has gotten me in a lot of trouble. So, how old were you, if you don't mind me asking? If you don't have to.
This is part of it. I'm pretty much transparent when it comes to it. This is, the reason I wrote the book, Moments, Writing Thoughts and Letters of a Two-Time Felon, right? I was actually 32, and I love that you brought up the age, because the thing about age is it's actually just a number. Just because you're 40 don't make you mature, right? It took me, and when I was in prison, I got arrested when I was 32. I was 2.5 years in, and I still had the mentality. And what happened was, it's in the book, I'm not being funny, but one of the stories I think people need to know is, I was upstate, I was in prison, I was walking around with my friend, what they call walk the yard, and if I'd have took the first offer they gave me, it would have been the day I was going home, like that week, right? So I'm walking the yard, I'm telling my friend, yo, man, I could be going home, and he's like, oh, damn, that's official, but you ain't take that off. I said, nah, guys, right, we think that we're smarter than we actually are. And I watch a lot of Law and Order, and you think, oh, this is gonna happen. That's false. That doesn't happen. This is real life. So long story short, he says, well, if you could go home today, what would you do? I said, I'm going back to the block. They owe me. I've been up here. They owe me, son. They owe me. I'm going back to the block. I'm 2.5 years in. So I was 34. I actually was 34 because I remember my 35th birthday, what I did in prison. So the age, I'm glad you asked that question, doesn't mean anything. It's about the maturity and the understanding of life and loving yourself. And the look that brother gave me, he didn't say a word. And to this day, that's one of my best friends. He didn't say a word. He looked at me with such disappointment. Like, it was a look. And at that moment, I shook it off. But we dapped each other up, he left, and I continued to stay in the yard. And as I was walking, I said, damn, he in here. And this young brother was already down like 7 years. He's fighting for his life. And literally fighting for his life. And I'm like, who am I to go back to the streets and mess up the second chance? I ain't even get it yet. And this brother, he's about 6, 7 years younger than me. So talk about age. It's not about the age. It's about the maturity and the understanding of life and what's important, right? So thank you for asking that question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to share a couple of things that was very helpful for me and my anger attitude. But I want to share first, I'm 72, and there was a phrase, I don't know if it's part of your generation, but there was a phrase, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. So that may be something that can help someone. What particularly helped me, I was formerly incarcerated also, And my anger level increased a lot when I was incarcerated. I mean, a lot. But I also got to know God there. And I studied Bible scriptures while I was incarcerated. And there was one scripture, I don't know exactly where it is, but I can quote it. Be angry and do not sin. So, of course, I did not even understand that. But I asked God to help me with that because I would have got a lot of tickets. I really would have. Because there's, some COs, they're very malicious. Tickets are like, if a person, if a CO or whomever is staff deems a inmate's conduct to be misbehavior, they could write a report. Sometimes it's not true and get a person a lot of lock time. So, and some officers come in trying to set up inmates on that level for various reasons. So for the most part, and then I was dealing with a case where I was actually innocent. So my anger level was like really mixed. But in the meantime, when I read that scripture, I knew I needed God to help me. And that may be something else that could be offered to someone else, because that really worked for me. But I can relate to the sister saying, I wanted to express my anger. I needed to do that. But I knew I couldn't do it the way I wanted to do that because I also didn't want to get locked any further. So I tested God on this. And I restrained my own anger and asked God to help me deal with the situation that was to provoke anger. But how can I address that? Yeah, I'm angry, but this is how I'm going to deal with it, and I'm not going to get a ticket. And God showed me how to do that. A lot. And it worked every time, literally. But I also knew I had the choice to go back to my own anger. And I got real close to going back. And thank God, I believe in Christ Jesus, rod and shepherd, drew me back in, And because as soon as I went on my own, I could say, I'm going to get snagged. So I retreated, which was important, and didn't catch a ticket. So now that I'm released, I conduct myself the same way. But now I'm a reverend. So I can thank God, I thank God. I thank God. But it started in prison. And I met a reverend there who really saw the sacredness in a lot of us. And those of us who finally got to know ourselves believed that we could really carry this further. So when I was released, I went to and got my master's in theology, and I was ordained. But the reality of it is, it's not an easy process, but it can be. But a person has to really, really, really know themselves and know how far to go and not go. So you're absolutely right about that. And I really want to commend y'all because of who you are and how you are conducting yourselves. You're telling the people the truth, something that really, really can work. Because sometimes we'll say things to the young and don't have a clue in terms of how to tell them to even do it. And they don't know how to do it. We say it, but what instructions have to happen after that statement? You'll offer that, and I really appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Anything to end? Oh, something. Come to the mic.
So I heard when you said your buddy was looking at you, and it made you think, right? And then lots of people don't realize because of the way the prison system is set up in today's day and age, well, always, and the way people act, you're sent to deal with the past, future, and present tense. You're sent to deal with yourself, and that's what it's for. But then people get in those situations and you become more rowdy, become better criminals, you become more vicious. You know what I mean? You're working out. Yeah, I'm about to go home. I'm going back to the block. I'm going to do the same thing I did. I'm going to take over young dudes out there. And I see it happen a lot. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to commend you on dealing with yourself. It's a beautiful thing. And to keep being a positive influence and helping people to deal with themselves and think about who am I? Who am I really? Am I what other people want me to portray? Because it's systematic every day, and that's what they play songs, and they And this is what we watching, and this is what you call it, television program. It's what's being programmed. So then, can you deprogram and reprogram yourself to be yourself?
So I'm gonna try to keep this short. Damn. So my question, I'm gonna just keep it to the question because I have a lot of thoughts in my head. The question was using your teachings that you gonna offer in your program or you have in your book or whatever. Looking back on the situation, I know my experience. I used to teach personal safety and self-defense for 10 years. And we dealt with de-escalation, and so I'm sure that there's different strategies in which you would try to derail or redirect the situation to go a different way. At what point or what would you do at any one of those points in situation? Because I know there's levels of escalation. There was the car, and then the moment you went and got the gun, and then there's that moment when you shot it. There were points, right? So looking at that, using your teachings, where would you implement some of your teaching and what would it be?
That's a great question. So you can start with using your teaching, but I can go with mine. So, all right, so using my teachings personally, really as it relates to.
So I think that's one of the greatest things about the organization as a whole. We are the heads, but we do have assistants, we have help. But the greatest thing about it is that she actually comes from the social work world, so she has that, and I'm gonna let her. I just think that's one.
So yes, so I do come from the world of social services. I've been in social services for over 15 years now. So that is something that I do implement into my teachings as it relates to photography. I can just give you basically, it's one of the things I always like to do is to tie life in with photography, right? And the part of that is when we're looking through the lens of life, we can see a picture in so many different ways. Sometimes it's blurred, so we can't actually see the full picture. Sometimes it's very much unclear. Sometimes it's shaky. There's many different ways that we see a picture, right? And I look at that as to life too, because I can look at life one day and it could be blurred, and I can look at life another day where I can see a sharp picture. I can look at life another day and it's pure black and white and no color at all. So when I think about that, I teach photography in a way of saying there are some times where you need to change the lens because every situation you cannot see the same, especially when you are experiencing different situations on a daily basis. So a part of that is learning how to look through the lens and know when you need to change the lens because the picture that you see in is not the picture that you actually want to see.
With that, I think the brother has a question, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
How you doing? Thank y'all for coming, first of all. So this question was posed in the back. So when it comes to conflict, resolution, right? And you guys giving different scenarios. So I guess this question would be more so for people who have who are educated, who went to school for it and have degrees and stuff in it, and who has an organization. This is what their practice. And then the people who may not have an organization, nothing like that, but they through experience, they've perfected their way of how to deal with conflict resolution or anything that comes their way, small or minor. So with this example, the question I have is, okay, so when you're looking up to someone, Giselle, how old are you? So let's say Giselle, let's say she's 22, and I got her probably about 10 years, but let's say that she got to a point in her life at 22 where she can deal with conflict resolution. Just like you said, the age doesn't make the maturity. So let's say she's already conquered it. She knows how to deal, even though she's young and there's other obstacles she's going to deal with. For the most part, she knows how to deal with conflict resolution. She get into any type of situation, physical, if it becomes physical, before becoming physical, anything like that. And I'm at the age I am, but I'm nowhere near rehabilitated or fixed, whatever the term is. So let's say I look up to her, anyone like that, and let's say the person that we look up to or the persons are they always dropping knowledge, they always got an answer for everything, they always quick to teach how to do this and do that, and conflict resolution, this, that, and the third. They got all the answers, and they have the energy, and they come off as this person that just is so perfect and know how to do everything in a crisis. And you come to look up to that person, and that person brings the energy when they come in the room like, all right, we got to be positive, because every time that person comes in, they're positive, they're loving, they're forward. And then one day something happens, they get tested. So you already expecting them to be like, oh, they're going to handle that. They good on that. And they get told about themselves or whatever, and they just flip the script. All this positive, all this God-fearing, quoting scriptures and all this stuff. All that stuff go out the window, and they just switch their whole attitude. And now they're a totally different person now. All the God bless yous and do this and that, all that went out the window, and they're a totally different person. But this is a person that you admired and you looked up to, but because of maybe one incident or one crisis, they're a whole different person. And those people that looked up to that person, now they're looking at them different. And if you learn from that person, now you're questioning everything like, so what did they teach me? Is it really real? Like, what is that really the truth? Should I really carry myself that way? Or should I just take what I learned from them and continue to apply it and just not make the mistake they did? So what should people do in that situation where the people that's supposed to be the teachers aren't practicing what they preach?
Well, the teacher had a relapse.
So I want to make sure I got that, right? So basically, I'm the mentor. They look up to me. She comes check me, and I flip out in front of them. This has happened. And this will happen. But the thing, now your question, the answer to your question is this. Y'all know how I give it up, right? Y'all know I come in positive. How's your day? Every day above ground is a good day, right? That's what I do. At times, people are going to test me. We all get tested, right? But the thing is to be accountable for that test, right? You fail the test. Shit happens. Excuse my French. This is how I talk to them, right? Shit happens, right? But the thing is be accountable. Now, I was wrong. I was dead wrong. She checked me on. So now watch this. I was wrong for that. You don't have to accept my apology, right? But I do apologize. It's sincere. I hope you accept my apology, and I'm gonna do things to make sure it doesn't happen again. My hard work, right? Work on myself and work and fix the flaws. So that's the answer, right? Be accountable, right? Be responsible, as well as apologize, and apologize from a place of sincerity. Most of the time,
Because then you're not owning it. Because if you say, well, I did that because they did this, you're not owning it.
right? And most of the time, right? You're not gonna say 100% of the time. Most of the time, it will work out, in both parties' favor, right? And you just hope it does. If it doesn't, you take it as an L, it's a lesson, and you move on. Thank y'all so much for having us. We are Nana's Living Room. Our website is nanaslivingroom.org. It's pretty much just everything is Nana's Living Room. IMC.org. See, I told you, what would I be without a Nana's Living Room, INC.org. We have a couple of flyers for the Polo Grounds map class. We're going to give those out. You can also follow us on Instagram. Instagram is our go-to, our hub, which is nanaslivingroom.org. Nana's Living Room Inc. Inc. On Instagram, not .org. Nana's Living Room Inc. On Instagram. You can follow us. With the class, we only have room for 15 participants. The phone number, the email is on there. You email or phone call or text us. We'll send the registration link. We're doing that so we can actually monitor how many people we actually registering. So hopefully, y'all send y'all nephews, nieces, the little ones out for us. You met us. We do this for real, so we appreciate y'all again. Thank you so much. Thank the youth. Get up for the youth. I love the youth. Oh, I thought you raised your hand. You good? Okay. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Did everybody enjoy that? Right? Clap it up. Thank you guys for joining us and telling us about your organization. We were very interested. So, for our third Did You Know, I'm calling up our NAN Youth and College Director, Mr. Felivi Dosa.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So I'm actually going to be next. I'm Dominique Sharpton. I'm the co-founder of NAN Youth Huddle and National Director of Membership here at National Action Network. First of all, I want to thank Danielle. Is Dan here? Sorrell? Thank you, Dan, for bringing our special guests today. I'm aware that they were at the Nyack Library where you and our founder, Ashley Sharpton, participated in a very amazing panel discussion around, I believe it was Juneteenth. Okay, and so we definitely have to continue to fight for the liberties and liberation of our people. And I believe that conflict resolution is a great way to start to really deal with what's going on at home and what's going on, how conflicts lie in our communities, and how they can ultimately be resolved without violence. I say all that brings me to this article, what I want to briefly discuss. And it was something that happened actually on my birthday, on Monday, July 31st, where a young man was stopped in Minneapolis by the police, and it ended in him losing his life. The surveillance footage of the shooting of Ricky Cobb Jr., who was killed by a state trooper on Monday, July 31st, during a traffic stop has been released by the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. Cobb was pulled over on Interstate 94 in Minneapolis early Monday morning because his taillights weren't on, and officers discovered that he was wanted by Ramsey County law enforcement for violating a no-contact order in a domestic case. Got it? After pulling the car over, the video shows a trooper coming to the driver's side of the car. He asked Cobb to step out of the vehicle. He just said that we have some stuff to talk about. That's all he said. Cobb asked the officer, with his hands raised, why he was being pulled over and refused to leave his vehicle. Is this a warrant? He asked. The trooper said, it's not a warrant, and then Cobb asked to call his attorney. The trooper then repeatedly tells Cobb to get out of the car and ask for his keys. The trooper on the driver's side and another on the passenger side, there were three, both opens the doors and attempts to pull the young man out of the vehicle. Get out of the car now, the troopers on the passenger side yelled to the driver. Eventually, Cobb drove off, and the trooper on the passenger side pulled out his gun and shot at the car. Although the sound of the gunshots were not captured on the officer's body camera, the Minnesota State Patrol confirmed that the trooper fired his weapon just as Cobb drove away. The troopers pursued him on Interstate 94 for 3 hours, and the surveillance footage showed that they stopped on the left lane of the highway. The three troopers therefore then surrounded the car and eventually pulled Cobb out of the vehicle in an attempt to provide first aid, but he died at the scene. He was not armed during the incident. Now, I wanted to bring this incident up because I know we were talking about conflict resolution, and I know that we constantly hear, especially in the news and the media, how young black men are being accosted and killed ultimately by police officers. And as we are heading to Washington, D.C. on August 26th, we're fighting for laws to change where police officers are being held accountable for their actions and not controlling their anger, and for being in a place of authority, having guns and weapons, where they can defend themselves and can exert their authority however they deem necessary, and then justify that at a later time. So we're working to revise these laws because, as we heard earlier, conflict can come from anywhere, and anybody, human being, can can get angry and resort in conflict. So it does not just apply to, of course, civilians, but it applies across the board. So there should be some more sanctions and definitely a heavier accountability factor for people who are in law enforcement or who are in, situations of authority or positions of authority where, the accountability factor should be a little bit harder, a little bit more difficult. But in a lot of instances, especially in America, that's not the case. That's it on one end. On the other spectrum, I think it's important for us to continue the conversations to talk about, especially like in this incident, how we, especially our young black men, can try to de-escalate conflict encountering police officers and what we can do to try to de-escalate conflict to get our young men home safely. I say that to say, in this article, in this particular situation, while we don't know exactly what happened, we are just literally finding the facts out based on what has been reported and based on what the cameras have shown the officers, have the incidents that have taken place. But we do know, just looking at the article and the way that they have stated the facts, that there is a possibility that this brother could have de-escalated this problem without having to actually drive away and cause a bigger problem. So we do need to talk about not the fact that when we're wrong, because cops should know how to diffuse situations without having to kill us. Number one. But on the other end, we also need to know how we can conduct ourselves so that we can do our due diligence and do our part to make sure that we get home safely. It's not being a punk, it's not being corny, but it is respecting ourselves and understanding that when we are coming across somebody who could be in authority, our life is literally in their hands. And what we say, what we do, everything matters. So I say that to say, I have been in situations where I have been stopped by the police. Some of it has been reported in the news, as y'all know. And conflicts have happened because I was upset. I was upset for being pulled over. I was upset because they're wasting my time. They had me pulled over. It's a lot of things that happen when you get pulled over by police. However, we have got to discuss ways in which we need to teach our young men what you say, what you do, what not to say, what not to do, so that in the end, we can all get home safely. So I bring that up to say, in this situation, while unfortunately this young man lost his life, there is going to be an array of media that's going to try to paint this picture as we are trying to fight for remanding laws like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and other important laws that we're trying to get passed. They're going to utilize incidents like this to say, well, black men are angry, black men don't listen, black men, he shouldn't have ran away, he shouldn't have left. So they're going to be utilizing these instances to build up a defense as to why it's not important or why, it's impossible for us to get progress with passing these types of laws. So I think we should talk about it. I don't know if anybody has any comments. But as we are doing these conflict resolution education workshops and we're having these discussions, I think that we need to discuss it on both ends, how we should fight to hold police accountable, but how we can also, in our own communities, talk to each other and try to help each other to resolve conflict on our own so that when we are faced by police, we know exactly what to do and how to get home safely.
I think last semester was the first time I ever got stopped by the cop driving. And the situation, I was driving one of my Spelman sisters back to campus, and to me it was so shocking. Like, it was just like I'm literally almost a couple blocks away to campus, and then all I hear is woo woo, and I actually panicked like so quickly, especially with when you're working with Nan, you've seen so many stories. Like I panicked so quickly, like everything went out the window for me. And I'm so glad my Spelman sister was able to be like, yo, just calm down real quick. Like, to really bring me down, because I was really panicking. And I really didn't know what to do. I was like it went, like I jerked the car for a second. And she's like, yo, just chill, pull to the side, turn the lights on. And I appreciate that. But it then brought me to this, I did get stopped, and I found out it was just because like I forgot to turn my light on. And I was like, okay, cool, it was my fault. I didn't get a ticket or anything. Now the second time I got stopped, and everything. And really wasn't nothing. He just kind of stopped us. But I was with one of my Morehouse brothers, and this time he was getting aggressive. He was getting mad, and I had to calm both of us down. Like, yo, chill. You know what I'm saying? Just let us just see what happens. You know, and for me, you know, I never got stopped in New York, and my school's down in Atlanta at Morehouse. So to me, I was always a little afraid of being in the South because it is a little different. We already know how bad it is in New York, so in the South it's you know, worse. And so, you know, I say all this because, you know, for me, my first time I was so shooken up, and then, you know, my next time, my Morehouse brother is over here overreacting, just realizing, telling people like, we just have to calm down just for a second, like you guys were saying, and just wait and see what the situation holds.
Thank you.
My contribution with respect to what Dominique was inquiring is for those whom could be anyone to know your rights and exercise your rights. It's important to not only know your rights, exercise your rights, but say the right words. It's important to make sure you're speaking the language so who you're communicating with will understand what you're saying. So that's really important. That's a lot of times why there are bilingual officers of the law to come and mediate situations, because we know people need to understand what the rules are so that they can follow the rules. And it's important to understand that when someone doesn't know what you're saying, a situation can escalate in a way that might negatively impact the circumstance. So aside from that, I also want to contribute. It would be great to see in the future another number that people can call on the phone, aside from 911, for when 911 dispatch and officers of the law are conducting themselves in a way that is questionable to those whom they are stopping, who may be nonviolent and may be innocent of the crime. So that way there is policing of the police instead of over-policing that we see so many times in so many different neighborhoods throughout the nation where people are being victimized due to abuse of power exhibited by law enforcement.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's what I would like to see more legislation regarding when the police do have an abuse of power, because of the fact that I'm so tired of seeing articles where the person had no weapon, you know, and he's dead. It just seems so crazy to me, because I feel like the cop should be held accountable for that. It was something wrong with his judgment, and it should be some kind of recourse for that. I mean, no one that has no weapon should be dead. I just don't understand how we rationalize this. No one without a weapon should be dead. No one should be dead that was running away. You know, he's running. It's like, why are we going crazy about him getting away? You're gonna find him. Like, it's just weird to me. It's just like we constantly see this, and it's like we allow it to continue. So I would like legislation to go forward with when someone, like in this case, has no weapon and is found dead, that there should be something. I mean, something should be done. If not jail, they should be terminated from their job. It just something has to be done. It's just too much. It's too often. It's crazy. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Hi, when you thought of to ask us what solutions do we have to offer, the first one I just thought of was, in this particular case with this man here, there was a lot of conversation. I think the driver should have said, make sure your cameras stay on. I think that's a request that anybody who is stopped by police officers, make sure your camera stays on. And the person talks to the camera, basically clarifying they're not going to be violent, they want to cooperate, they'll go to the precinct, you know, just make sure they talk to the camera for safety reasons. Legislation is important. Of course, we're working on that, but it takes time. Another thing I just thought of also is pertaining to, I don't understand what the rules are of police officers, but I would think that one of the rules could be, if the person is driving off get their license plate, leave them. They'll be caught. It just seems like a very easy rule to implement among police officers. If the person is running in the car or running on foot, you take a picture of them, but don't run after them. It's like they'll be arrested later. All right, thank you.
I don't know how many police officers will keep their job letting a civilian run away. And they like, let me take this picture, send it to my boss, let him know I'm on a job. Interesting concept, but thank you for sharing. No, you're right. I just never heard that perspective.
As the participants, as people in attendance know, as I said, I was incarcerated. So for me, seeing lights behind me, PTSD, literally, like, I start sweating. Up until recently, I got pulled over. This was maybe like 2 months ago. About 2 months ago on 3rd Avenue in the Bronx. And the cop was in the left lane, nobody in the right lane, then it's the bus lane. So I went around and put my blinker on, went around him. Then I went up the block, He pulls me over. And I told my wife, I said, why'd he pull me over? Because he felt I disrespected him. It was no other reason. Because he was in traffic and I didn't want to wait behind him. So I went to the other lane, put my blinker on. I did everything correct. So asking him, when he came out, I said, hello, how you doing, officer? What did you pull me over for? The regular rhetoric. And he said, oh, you was in the bus lane. I said, no, sir, I'm sorry, that's not a bus lane. Right? So he said something else. So me, I know it's just what Daniel was saying, right? Know what to say, right? So what he said, I pretty much had my 3-4 questions is in my head. So when he started, went back and forth with him a couple of times, then it got to a point, I was like, okay, no problem. And he asked me for my license. I said, I'm gonna tell you my name, and then you tell me what you pulling me over for. They can't take your information, they can't take your license, because you gotta tell me why you pulling me over. That's a fact. So give me your license, what I'm getting pulled over for. I'm gonna give you my name, so then you'll feel safe, right? Give you my name, pulling over for this. So now I rolled the window down, I said, that's not what happened. So we go back and forth. Long story short, he comes back from the car with my license. He says, my partner is gonna write you the ticket. Y'all know why, right? Because everything he said was false. The camera is on. But he writes the ticket, the camera backs up what I said, he's not guilty. So from now we said earlier, my wife said, perspective, right? Change his perspective. They don't really use eyewitnesses no more neither in court cases, because every person can see something different and it'll be a fact. So because his partner was on the right side, he's seen something totally different. So the ticket is totally different than what the partner said. It's a game. And understanding this, when you get into but the young lady said too, no, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime, right? But it's understanding your crime. You understand your crime, then you understand what I'm faced with. So I just say that to say, be understanding of what we're doing out there, as she said, right? A lot of times, the onus is on us. We're the ones that rah, we get excited, we get motivated, agitated, and at the same time, the police actually have our lives in their hands. So just being mindful of that and being responsible and accountable for your own actions, I think will take us a long way. And one resource I have, I'm not sure if y'all familiar with goodcall.org. So Good Call is a organization that gives free legal representative. Y'all know Good Call? Right. I'm not sure if y'all had Yeah, but their presentations, because we affiliate with them, they did fabulous. I think that would be something great to have for y'all constituents, for y'all people.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, Huddle. Sometimes what happens is the police officer, the majority of the time, that stops us is a white officer. And those white officers try to prove themselves, make themselves look good and make us look bad. Now, I was getting in the accessoride. The guy strapped me down. I'm strapped down. And I said, let me ask you one question. You had me go 4 blocks and cross all those streets. If I would have got hit by a car, who would have been responsible for that? When everybody drops me off and picks me up in that spot, but you had me go 4 blocks. I'm tied down now, can't move. He calls 911, and the police come. And the police come, and the officer says to me, get off the bus. I said, first of all, if I'm tied down, how am I going to get off the bus? That's number one. I said, and why do you want me to get off the bus? He said, I vandalized the bus. I refused to pay, and I threatened the driver. Now, to all of y'all people that talked about the law and know what to say, here. I told him, I said, well, if you refuse to pay, it's called the Code 20. Everybody that takes accessorized should know about that. It's a Code 20. You get 3 Code 20s and they suspend you. Okay? So you could go even if you refuse to pay. Code 20. Now, he said vandalize. Vandalizing means you steal something. All right? If I'm tied down, I can't steal anything. I can't run around with nothing because I'm tied down. Then he said, I threatened the driver. And my comment after that is, I'm sitting down. I don't want to be laying down. I said, so why should I threaten him? That don't mean nothing. And then he said, oh, you got all the answers, don't you? But you getting off of this bus. Now, 2 cops came on there. The first cop, he reeked with liquor. He was drunk as a skunk. They made me get off the bus. This was 8 o'clock in the afternoon, or in the evening time. Another bus never came until 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was left out there in the rain. So all that about know what to say, sometimes that's good, but the mentality of the person that you're saying it to, it depends on them. Because if they pull you over for anything, stop you or whatever, look at me. And they're going to tell me I threatened the driver, I vandalized the bus. All that's just to make themselves look good and to make you look bad. All right? So some of that stuff that all y'all was saying goes out the window. This is actual stuff that happened that I'm telling you. So it's not no makeup or whatever. It happened to me.
Thank you for sharing. All right, we got a lot of work to do, y'all. We need to continue these dialogues and conversations. Thank you for lending your voice and your time to talk about this, and the struggle continues.
Thank you, Dom. So finally, we have our last Did You Know from our very own NAN Youth and College Director, Mr. Felivi Dosa. Clap it up for him.
New York City unveils $500 million gun violence plan focusing on communities not NYPD. A sprawling new plan aimed to stop the cycle of gun violence in New York City by investing $500 million into community-focused programs rather than directly into the police. The plan, a blueprint for community safety, was unveiled by Mayor Eric Adams in a Monday event that doubled as a who's who of promote city and state leaders. All argued the plan's sweeping scope, including nearly $120 million for early intervention programs, would help take people off the path towards picking up a gun with violent intent. And the blueprint's many goals won't be meaningless words, says A.T. Mitchell, who founded Man Up Inc. and co-chairs the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force that crafted the plan. Words on paper without actions are meaningless, he said. The plan first calls to first focus investment in 6 New York Police Department precincts: the 40th, the 42nd, the 44th, and the 47th in the Bronx, and then the 73rd and the 75th in Brooklyn, that has been the hardest hit by gun violence. These investments fall into 7 strategies outlined by the mayors. I really want people to focus on these 7s, because this is really what's going to break down how he's going to spend the money, or how he said he would spend the money. The first one is early intervention. $118.3 million to increase early supports, including mentorship, opportunities for young people to prevent themselves from becoming involved in gun violence. The second one is housing, with $57.5 million to improve existing housing condition, including for public housing residents, and increase access to transportational, supportive, and permanent housing units. The third one, navigation and benefits. $67.8 million to help New Yorkers access public benefits $57.8 million to help New Yorkers access public benefits they deserve and provide better access to justice involvement individuals and families navigating benefit programs. The fourth one, community utility, $8.64 million to invest in public spaces, including parks, playgrounds, and community centers, to make neighborhoods safer and more viable. Employment and entrepreneurship, $118.5 million to target opportunities and skills training for young New Yorkers and justice involvement individuals, to give them pathways to sustainable, well-paying jobs. Number 6, trauma-informed care, $106.66 million to bolster mental health resources for young people and others with a diagnosed mental illness, and ensure appropriate crisis response to those suffering from mental health episodes. And number 7, community and police relationships, $2.6 million to strengthen the bonds of trust between police and communities by allowing greater collaboration on neighborhood safety initiatives, ensuring more effective policing that balances the twin of safety and justice. The more than $485 million plan come after engagement with roughly 1,500 community residents in the city, official says. So that's a lot, and I like how the article actually breaks down his plan of the $500 million. And so my thought, especially with what we were speaking about today, I wanted to ask, what are your specific thoughts on this plan, especially with the 7 strategies that Mayor Adam has, and do you believe this is actually effective? And remember, let's talk more about the 7 strategies specifically.
In my opinion on this, and I know this sounds a bit, melodramatic or, I guess just a bit Debbie Downerish, if that's the best way of putting it. But it's not really going to matter if the culture itself won't adapt to fix its own issue. Because if you told someone who is hard-headed, fix your problem, they're going to, rebel, rush away, because my generation and such is not necessarily the best of listeners. And that's not exactly their fault or anyone else's fault. I can attest to that problem as well, but if anything, it's best to try and help them fix their own issue on their own terms, which is what I hope that this plan is going to do. Because it's not exactly like the guns are materializing because someone wants to be killed or someone wants to kill, but because of a culture that is telling them, hey, it's cool. It's like, sure, it's okay to, be like, oh, I live this life, or I live this life. But as long as you keep it into show business, then that's perfectly fine if it's show business. Unless you're showing it to 5-year-olds, of which they then grow up into wanting to be everything it's.
Yeah, I'd just like to know, when is this going to start?
In the article, it didn't say when,
Yeah.
but I think it's going to be starting very soon.
Yeah, because that's the part I was listening for. It's a lot of money, and did they start this already? So somebody's going to benefit from it. So I think it's worthwhile. I'm looking forward to seeing it, because obviously it's going to be a lot of physical changes too. So I'm looking forward to it. It's better than nothing. And it covers a lot, so it's going to benefit some people. And there, of course, there are going to be people who want to still be violent, and that's what prisons are for. So there's a place for them too. But there are obviously people who need services, housing services, mental health services, and any other services that this particular program is going to cover. So somebody's going to benefit. I think it's good. I'm looking forward to it. I hope it's 2023 starting. That's the part. Yeah.
Give her a round of applause.
When it comes to the crisis response, I just hope that they really have a good plan when it comes to that, because we've had several mobile crisis response programs already. I mean, we've done the pilot program, and they're not utilizing it. So I feel like a lot of times when we get new administration, they present programs that we've already had in the past, and it's not being implemented long term. Like, we're not making it permanent. So people come into a new administration, and then they come up with the same idea. The ideas aren't really being implemented, and we're still continually having this cycle of problems when we already have a great model, but the model isn't being, it's not long-term, it's not permanent, and it doesn't stay in place when we get a new administration. And I find that to be very frustrating.
Good evening. I feel that Eric Adams is a visionary. He has great ideas, and this is a great initiative, but it all is based on the power of intention and to get people to learn that everybody has issues. Society is different now than it was 10, 15 years ago, and that the reason why a lot of crimes are committed across the board is because folks have fear in them and an inferiority complex. And because of those two issues, they act in a way that either preserves their pseudo-power or they pretend that they're bigger than what they actually are, like Donald Trump. And the solution to that problem is that you have to have a lot of user groups with parenting, the police, the schools. They come together and discuss ideas and do the best they can to try to manage the activities and the behavior of either the schools, groups, or in the workforce. And until you have a collaboration, the society is just going to grow like a weed and become metamorphic and move around in different stages, and you're going to have problems. Because who would have known that we have a president now that's up against a lot of charges? That's an embarrassment. And yet you had a black president that was high quality, and they try to put him down. So something's wrong with that picture. Thank you.
Anyone else? For me, I'm very excited. I also like how the article breaks down the 7 strategies. And of course, for the record, this will be implemented in 6 of the precincts, 2 in Brooklyn, and then the rest will be in the Bronx. But the 2 strategies that, to me, I'm really looking to see where it goes is the employment and entrepreneurship. I feel like having more young people have jobs will help with getting them off the streets, because now they will have a source of income and will have to go other ways. I do like the idea of the mental health resources. Mental health right now has currently been affecting this country, and I'm excited to see that there is money being put into it. Now, at the end of the day, of course, I will still be here, and we're going to see what he does to see if this actually works. And if it doesn't, we'll go back to the drawing board, and hopefully we can actually be there at the tables to figure this out. But for now, I am excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Fo. So that was our last Did You Know? We had a great evening. I was so interested. I was so in tune. I really enjoyed myself this Monday. I hope everybody did. Everybody enjoy themselves? Okay, because we want y'all to enjoy yourself every Monday y'all come here. This is what we're here for to get knowledge and for us to enjoy ourselves in this beautiful sanctuary. So now I would like to close us out in prayer. Y'all know I do it real quick, so. Okay, so I would like everybody to bow their heads. Thank God that everybody got here safely. Hopefully everybody leaves this building safely and get home safely. The topics that we talked about today, I hope everybody, especially the youth that are watching us, uses that in their everyday life so they won't run into any type of problems. And I thank everybody for being in this room with us. May God bless us all. Please say thank you. Bless the hands that prepared the food today. And amen. Please say please and thank you when you get in your food. Okay, can everybody